Hey everyone, this is Lisa from TRW, and in this video, I decided to do the ultimate big decal challenge. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting up a huge, almost 4 foot by 4 foot decal. So because of that, I will be using Silhouette Studio Business Edition to tile my design, break apart my cuts, and then I will be cutting it with my Cameo. So I will also show you how to feed in 4 feet of vinyl to make sure it feeds through straight and to make sure you have good cuts. So if you want to watch this video and if you would like to see how to set up a big decal from start to finish and to make sure you do it as seamlessly as possible, then let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to do a big Halloween decal. So I'm really excited. We have this little pack here. We have a sample pack, different Halloween wall decals. Now, of course, you can use this for your HTV, but I'm going to be using this for wall decals. So part of the reason why I'm specifically using wall decal vinyl is that wall decal vinyl is a lower tack, so I can remove it. It's a great seasonal item. One thing I want you to remember though is wall decal vinyl does become permanent after 2 years. So let's say you are living in an apartment long term, 3 to 4 years, then just plan on the paint being taken off your wall when you take it off. Now, of course, there are exceptions to the rule. If your paint is newer, then wall decal vinyl can also rip that off if it is a newer paint as well. But all that aside, let's go ahead and set up our design. So I really like this pack. I'm going to do an all black decal and I'm going to pick this design right here, this little haunted house. So I'm just going to go ahead, copy it, and open it in a new document. So I'm going to paste that in there. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my cutting area. Now I am also going to adjust this in Business Edition, but what I'm going to do at first is I'm going to set up my cutting area. So my width is going to be 12 inches and then my height is going to be 48 inches. So what I'm doing is I have 5 4-foot sections of wall decal vinyl. So I'm going to set my design to be a little bit smaller than 4 feet because I want it to fit on my material. So if we have our 48 inches, I'm going to go ahead and set up my design to be about 44 inches across. So let's go ahead, let's do this. I have my design selected. We're going to go up here to my scale panel in my quick access toolbar in Silhouette Studio, and you can see my design is bigger height wise, it's taller, so that is what I'm going to set to 44 inches and then hit enter. So now you can see it's about 41 inches wide, which is still pretty big. Now if you look at this, there's no way we can cut it all in one piece. We're going to have to break it up. So one of the biggest things that becomes a problem after the fact and you don't realize you don't have these safeguards in place is how to line up my design once it's on the wall. So registration marks work really well when you're doing a 2-color vinyl decal, but when you're lining up something like this, like what do we use? So I'm going to show you a method that I like to use. There are other ways to do this, but I found in my experience putting up big decals, I like doing this. So I'm going to go over to my left toolbar and I'm going to do my rectangle tool. We're going to draw a really long, skinny rectangle, like really long, and we're going to color it a different color. So let's do this bright pink. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to set this up on this side of my design, and I'm going to make sure that it's shorter or within the size of my design, because my design is set up to be the right size for my material, but if my line is longer, then it doesn't do me any good. So let's go ahead and now I'm going to drag my mouse and select both of these, and I'm just going to use my align tools to align that right in the center there, just to be safe. So now I just want to make another version for over here. I'm going to hold down my Alt button, bring this over and set it up over here, and now I'm just going to go ahead, grab both of these, use my align panel, and align them in the middle. So what I am looking for are areas of my design that will have kind of like this overlap that I can use this line to line it up. So I could move this over a little bit to the side, but I want to go through these windows because if my cut breaks are like right here, then I can go ahead and use those there. So let's go ahead, I'm going to hold down Shift and grab both of these lines. The first thing I want to do is I just want to go ahead, right click, group them together so that they our group together. And so if we were to cut this right now, it's going to cut this line all the way through our material as well. We basically want this line to be cut around our design. So let's go ahead, right click, and we're going to send it to the back. So now we have this back here. Now, functionally, this is what we want, but there are still things that we need to adjust, because if we were to cut it, that line is still going to cut. Those lines are all in there. We just arranged how we see them. So we need to go over to the Modify panel. I'm going to select both our lines and our design. We have it set right here. And we are going to do Subtract All. So you will know, if you watch my videos often, I use a Subtract All the time. I'm basically taking the design and we're doing Subtract All with that. What we're doing now is we are subtracting the parts of the lines that are behind my shape. So let's go ahead, do Subtract All. Because this design is really big, I might have a little bit of a delay. It's taking a really big design and breaking it apart. So be patient. You can see my mouse is kind of turning right now. Totally fine. That is a normal thing to have. So we're gonna let that go. You can see my Modify panel just went away. Totally fine. It's not a big deal. But if I use my lines, I move them, you can see that this is knocked out. So if I were to go over here and turn on my line color to red, okay, and then turn off all my fill, you'll see when I zoom in, this line doesn't go behind my house. It kind of goes next to it, but not behind it. So that is helpful, because then I can use those lines to line up when I put it on the wall. So now we've done all of our prep work. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set up our design in the software to break it apart into my multiple cuts, and then we'll be ready to start cutting. So let's go ahead, and this is where Business Edition really shines. I'm going to go over to my Media Split View. So if you have this right panel, it's going to be the last option. You may have to press this arrow like I did. And then let's Show Media Layout Split Screen. Now this is pretty much the same as this left side is where you've been designing, and this right side is like your cut panel. So we're going to go ahead and set up our work area. So you'll see that my width is 12 inches, my height is 48 inches, and then one thing to keep in mind that I want to point out real quick is it only shows these lines here. Now that happens, let's turn off the split screen, because this design here was an SVG. So I need to select my design, go to the Send panel without that split screen, and then hit Cut. So now you can see my house is showing up. You can have that all set. So it's going to look weird there because it's going to try to rotate it to fit in there. But now our cut lines are turned on. If we show the split screen, you can see there's my house. So right now, only part of our design is on here because we need to set up our tiling feature. And you can see I have these right here because it's already trying to do it. So let's go ahead and set up our height to 48 inches, which I already have, but we'll set that there. And then I'm going to do a cut border. So you can see down here, if you're just starting, you're going to have a cut border of 0. I set them all to 0.125. That's 1/8 of an inch, just to be safe on my material. And now we're going to go over to our tiling panel, which is this 4th option. When you get in here, you're going to see it's going to be unchecked. So this is really what you're going to see. But I'm going to go over and turn on my tiling. So we want to go over and configure position and size. Let's go ahead and do relative to media or relative to job. So relative to job is typically your best option. It's going to find your design and set up your different cuts. So you see we have our first one, second panel, third panel, fourth panel, and fifth panel. And it'll also give you the dimensions. So each one of our cuts is about 10 inches wide. This last one's a little less than 4. So we want to go over, set this up, and then we also want to put a margin. So I have a margin of 2. That's basically when you line up, there's a little bit of overlap to help line them up easier, right? So we have all these options here. So we have 5 tiles. So I'm going to jump over, get my Cameo set up, and I'm going to show you how to feed in your material, and then I'm going to show you how to cut these tiles. So let's go ahead and get that started. So we are all set. Here's my Cameo, and you will see I have a very big piece of vinyl here. So this is our FDC wall vinyl. This is a lower tack removable wall vinyl. You can get it on our website at therhinestoneworld.com. And this is a 12-inch section. So the first thing I want to do is I want to move my roller over. So I'm going to drop this down, unlock it, and bring that over there. So now we have that in place. We're going to move this. right, so this part of the process is probably what's going to take you the longest. One of the biggest issues when you are cutting long pieces of vinyl is that people will say, why is my vinyl shifting? So the more you feed in your vinyl, the more it can go off track if it's loaded in a little bit crooked. Basically, if it's in a little bit crooked, kind of like this, like that, when it keeps going, it keeps curving, and that's how you get crooked cuts. So it may seem kind of weird, but we're going to feed it through to make sure it goes through straight. So I'm looking at my arrows here, I'm looking at my line here, so I want my line to be set up right here, my arrow straight, load it. So I can already feel it caught it a little bit crooked, so I'm going to lift this bar, adjust it just a tiny bit. So I'm basically having this side of the vinyl go straight through this arrow on the side. So now, the seemingly boring part, we're going to hit this arrow right here. Basically, you're going to feed the whole thing through. So this sees if it's loading in straight, and I can already tell you it's not. I might even catch it sliding. So look where this is on this roller now. It's all the way over. So, see this? It's already off track, which means that is going to happen during your cut. And everyone's going to be unhappy. This right here, and you will have wasted feet of vinyl, not just the dramatic, I wasted so much vinyl. Like, no, you really will. So let's go ahead, hold this again. Let's load it. So I'm pressing against the roller. So far so good. Let's go ahead and feed it through. So watch this right here. So it's shifting a little bit. And there you go. It's off the roller. So again, we're just going to keep repeating it until we have it right. You may think, oh, this is ridiculous, I don't want to unload it that much, but you're going to have a really cool, awesome long decal. So just keep in mind, yeah, it may take a little bit longer, but it's going to be awesome. So I flipped it over because I want to see if this end is cut a little bit straighter. So let's go ahead, bring this up, load it. And one of the reasons why you may have issues loading it is that I have such a big piece of vinyl that it also kind of weighs it down. So you want to counteract that weight as well. So far so good. So we're going to keep loading that. So it is shifting like a little bit, but I think that's going to be okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this down, but I'm not going to press the unload button because I have my vinyl loaded in the way I want it to be, but I don't want to unload it because it'll take it out of the roller. If I hit this arrow, it keeps it in the roller, and then we can go ahead and load it. Because it'll stop. So now it's just stopped. So let's jump back to my software, and we're going to check our cut settings, and then we can send this first cut over. All right, so now I'm in my cut panel. So I have a preset for FDC vinyl that I already have. If you'd like to see how to preset your own cut settings, then go ahead and find the link in the description. I'll have that for you. So you can see I have my 5 panels there. So this is my first panel that's about to cut. So I have all my cut settings over here, and I have my Cameo set up. So I'm going to go ahead and send it, and once this cut is over, I'll kind of show you how to do the next panel. So if you look right here, it says tile number 1, 1 of 5. So here's my first cut. So it's all done. We're going to go ahead and unload it. So this, oh, do you see that catch? So this is the top left quarter of my design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, and I'm going to write number 1 in this corner. That way it'll help me with lining this up once I'm done. So we're going to set this to the side. I'm going to go ahead and load in my next piece of vinyl, and then we'll be ready to do our next cut. All right, so here we are back in the software. So you'll see we have our Cameo. It says pause, it says load new media. So we're going to go ahead and resume it. So this is going to cut the second tile. So let's go ahead and resume cutting. So now you can see tile number 2, 2 of 5. So there's my second cut. Let's go ahead, unload it. I'm gonna hover over because I don't want it to fall on the floor. Okay, so here's my left corner. Just taking it, flipping it over. So let's go ahead, write number 2. So number 2. All right, so let's go ahead, grab our next piece and repeat. Okay, so we're back in the software. That adjustment was about a minute, and then we're gonna go ahead and resume cutting. Alright, so now for this part, I am gonna go ahead and weed. I didn't want to show you no more cutting because, to be honest, once you see it once, you see it a million times. So for this, I just want to point out that I am using scissors and cutting out parts of it as I go. With your wall vinyl, make sure you're not letting it fall over on itself. Now it's time to apply my transfer tape. I'm using wall decal transfer tape. It's a lower tack. I realized after this first one, because that piece is so big, it's kind of easier to have someone help you. So I went and got someone to help me lay down the tape, and that's what we're doing right here. The tape is a little bit more firm than the typical sign decal transfer tape, so you can see there are areas we put on a little bit crooked, but you can always fix that pretty easily. Alright, so now we're ready to install. I've recruited 2 helpers to help me with a decal this big. It's way better to have at least one other person, preferably 2 other people. So what we're going to do is we're going to install it in pieces, and I am going to be using the hinge method of applying. So we're going to go ahead and start lining this up. So this wall, just so you know, has bumps in it, but this was the only wall I had. So just ignore some bumps that you might see. It's not with the decal. Okay, so we're going to hold this up. And I'm going to step back to make sure it's even. Sophie, will you bring your side down a little bit? And a little bit more. Okay, so now we have this set. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of painter's tape and I'm going to tape it right in the middle. So this is our hinge for us to take off the tape in pieces. And this helps get good application. So there's our hinge. Oh yeah, I am recording that. There's our hinge, so we're going to set that up. And now what we're going to do is we are going to peel off one side and cut the paper backing off and then apply the decal. So we're going to... It's not picking up. That's okay. Cool. Hold on. So this little piece, the vinyl didn't want to... We didn't cover it, but it's okay. All right, so now we have this tape up, and I'm going to cut this piece back here. We're going to take that away. Can I hand these to you? So now we're just going to smooth one side. Just like you would apply any other decal. So now that we have this on the wall, we can go ahead and remove this side. So I'm going to take this tape up. Oops. So we're going to smooth it. And so sometimes, especially with wall vinyl, you have to really burnish it to get your vinyl to come up. It's really not a big deal. It's just one of those things. Because like I explained earlier, because our tape is a lower tack, sometimes you may have to really scrape it to make sure that tape is pulling it up, at least for now. But we know it'll come off cleanly once we put it on the wall. Cool. So now we're just going to repeat the process. Smooth this over. Okay, so this is our first section. You'll see we have these lines right here that are not part of the design, but they're for us to line it up. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take our next section and we're gonna line it up to these. And don't forget the design is set up with a little bit of an overlap, so we're gonna have it overlap a little bit too. All right, so my decal is up on the wall. So the next thing I need to do, and just the last step, is I'm going to peel off these little sections, these little lines. This is just my little guidelines, and I don't need them now. It'd be a weird design with these lines through it. So I'm going to peel this up. Now keep in mind, wall vinyl is removable, but if you are working with a wall that is freshly painted, you do run the risk of peeling off your paint. So for something like this, and you're unsure, you can always set up your design without these lines. There were lots of markers in this design to kind of give me an alignment. If you're doing something like long rows of text, these lines would be a good idea, but for something like this where there are so many pieces that kind of fit in each other, we didn't really need them. And here it is. This is my giant 4-foot by 4-foot decal, designed and cut using my Silhouette CAMEO and Silhouette Studio Business Edition. Now this is a great example of the cool things that you can do with Business Edition and just working through a lot of the features. So this was using the tiling feature, and then I just used my wall vinyl. So a good tutorial for you guys on the whole process, designing to application. I'm really excited about this, and then once Halloween's over, maybe I'll replace it with a big Christmas design. So if you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more videos. And comment below. Let me know what you learned in this video and what you'd like to see in future videos.